Welcome back to Mistake Man. My wife and I are big Star Wars fans, and here's one of our little collections of Star Wars toys. And it's on a display shelf that I made to look like the Millennium Falcon. From the collection of toys you see here, you might be able to tell my wife's favorite Star Wars character. We've got an entire row dedicated to Ahsoka Tano. And in fact, she's spilled over onto some of the other shelves. There's one there. There's one there. And one there. So yeah, Ahsoka Tano is my wife's favorite character. For her birthday a few years ago, we went to Disneyland and visited the whole Star Wars theme section of the park and had a lot of fun there. And she got a set of Ahsoka Tano's lightsabers. This is her later set when after she's left the Jedi Order and shows up years later, and she's got the white bladed sabers, and with this hilt design here. Right now, they're just kind of in a box on the shelf. We don't really have any place to display them, and so I want to build a a display for these lightsabers. And the idea is to kind of hang them on the wall, and so the display itself will kind of have be cool looking, have some style to it, but also will really be enhanced by displaying the hilts themselves. Plus, when you activate the blades, you get the whole glowy effect. So anyway, that's my goal, is to build a display stand for these. So on to the design phase. I have been going through some design concepts for the lightsaber display, and I think what I want to do is have something that'll hang on the wall, probably just display the sabers vertically. And I talked with my wife, and she wants to incorporate the fulcrum symbol that Ahsoka Tano kind of takes on, that secret identity of fulcrum during the start of the rebellion against the Empire. And this symbol, she uses this symbol to represent that fulcrum identity, which comes from it's based on the patterns in her skin on her forehead. And so I want to incorporate that design. So what I've done here is I've traced out that symbol and then just printed it out a bunch of times on a sheet of paper so that I can just sketch some different concepts to see what I like. And so I've gone through that exercise here and come up with a few ideas. And so, just kind of like a shield shape with that symbol on it, and then thinking the sabers would be in front of that. So I tried a few different ideas here. Some of them symmetrical, some of them asymmetrical. Like this one here is that I was thinking just more like basically just the symbol, and then have those, so like the symbol would be floating there. But of course, in real life they can't be detached, they've got to be connected. So I would connect them with maybe just some clear acrylic or something, so that all you would see would be the symbol. And on a couple of these I drew the sabers so that I kind of get an idea of what that would look like in front of them. So I ran these ideas by Wheezy, and she pointed out a couple that she likes. She likes this one and this one here. And I like this one here. And this one is kind of like, the sketch looks a little sketchy, but the idea was that like there would be like the main panel shield shape behind it, and then there would be several layers, maybe one or maybe even two, layers of that would be further back and maybe a different color. And so that was kind of the idea I was trying to sketch out there. But yeah, so I think we've narrowed it down to a few that we like. And so I'm going to model these up in my 3D modeling software just to get a better idea of what this might look like, and to start getting a sense for the actual size and scale of the thing. Start working towards what the actual construction is going to be like, what materials I'm going to make it out of, how the sabers are actually going to be attached, connected to the display, how the display will be connected to the wall, that sort of thing. So, all right, I'm in my 3D modeling software here, and I've modeled the two different lightsaber hilts and the blades as well. They're just simplified representations of them. I didn't go into all the detail, to model it exactly like what it looks like in real life. It's not a digital twin of the actual saber hilt, but I did take measurements and get the actual, overall length and width and depth of everything. And where there's some kind of black rings around the top and around the bottom. I just modeled the one around the top because I think that's how I'm going to probably support the hilts on the display, is running something underneath and kind of hooking underneath that edge. So I put that in there just so I would have a good reference, a dimensionally accurate reference of what that's going to be like. And, the two hilts are different, so this is a little bit shorter. They're the same size, around, but they're just different lengths. So, and I've modeled up a few different variations of the kind of shield design in the back. And this is one of the ones that Wheezy liked, with just kind of like the basic rectangle with these chamfered off corners, and then with the fulcrum symbol in the middle. And then I've modeled it with kind of like a brushed metal appearance, because I'm thinking I might want to go with something like that. Do kind of a brushed metal on the face of it, and then have the fulcrum symbol recessed and be like a white acrylic or something like that. But I've also modeled up a couple of the different variations. So I've got this one, and so here's one of those asymmetric designs. You can see it's, again, the brushed metal, but then kind of a recessed detail at the top, maybe in plastic or painted wood or something. Not sure what I would do there, but. And then the other asymmetric design here, where it's actually in two separate pieces that would either be joined together with some clear acrylic or maybe just mounted separately on the wall. Yeah, and the idea is to kind of have the sabers be displayed out in front like that. And I can adjust, move these around to get them into the right positions. I can swap them around so that the sabers curve inward if I want. Now, as far as like the scaling, once we decide on the style of base that or plate, shield, whatever we want in the back, then I would probably adjust the scale just to fit, just so it would look what would look good with the length and distance of the sabers. And also, I'm going to have to take into some considerations what materials I'm going to be making this stuff out of, and what sizes of material, of raw material, I can order. So if I'm going to be doing this in kind of a brushed metal appearance, then I'll have to find something that'll work, whether it's just a thin decorative sheet metal that I could apply to like a wood substrate, or even I've even seen some like plastic type material that has a brushed metal appearance to it that actually wouldn't look too bad. Anyway, so those are kind of the three ideas. I showed them to Wheezy. She likes them all, but I think she likes this one the best, and I like it as well. So we'll probably end up going with this one. Okay, so I've done a little bit more research on availability of materials. We did finalize on this design. We did decide we liked this the best. And so this is what we're going to go with. And I have adjusted it. It was much shorter in the original concept, but I've extended it to where I think it's going to look good with the length of the blades and the positioning of the hilts. And I've also done some design work on how I'm actually going to mount the sabers to the display. And my idea is to use some clear acrylic sheet that I'll kind of cut into multiple pieces. Let me open that up so you can see that. And so yeah, there would be one piece there that I would cut out of the sheet, and then another piece in the back, and then these two side pieces, and then I glue those together. And the idea is that the saber, in order to mount the saber, the hilt of the saber will fit through this portion here, but then if I slide it forward, it will catch under these black ring features that are around each hilt. And so, yeah, so I can slide or drop the saber down in there and then slide it forward, and then it'll rest on that and it should hold it. And these sabers are kind of heavy, and so that's why this is kind of big and bulky looking, but I'm hoping just from the front it should look pretty good, especially out of the clear acrylic. I'm going to do white acrylic sheets in the back for this fulcrum symbol. And then for this brushed metal, I was able to find a material called aluminum composite material, or ACM. It's not anything I've ever seen before, but essentially it's like a sandwich material where it's got like the main core of the material. I don't really have it modeled like that in here. This is just kind of one monolithic solid, but the idea is that like there's the core of it is a sheet of some kind of plastic, and then on the face there's a thin sheet of aluminum, and on the front and the back there are thin sheets of aluminum, and you can get different finishes. You can different colors, painted or just like flat looking aluminum, or they also had an option to do brushed, and so I think that's what I'm going to get. The end result is not going to look as dark as what is displayed here in my model. It's going to be aluminum, so it's going to be much brighter, which is fine. I wasn't really crazy about this dark metal anyway, but it's going to be quite a bit brighter. But I think I'm not going to do, I don't think I want to have it be like shiny and clean and brand new. I think I might want to grunge up the metal a little bit, do some weathering, just to kind of, I don't know, give it a little bit more visual interest than just being, flat, perfect, shiny metal and plastic. So, hey, I got my materials in, and here we have the white acrylic. It's just an opaque white, you can see there. And that's 1/8 inch thick. And then there's a clear acrylic, you can see there. And that's 3/16 inch thick. And then here is the aluminum composite material, as you can see there. ACM is what it was called. And I haven't actually taken a look at that yet, so let's peel back a little bit here so we can take a look. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that looks good. So as you can kind of see, look at that edge there. It's just got like a plastic core and then really thin sheets of aluminum on the front and back. And this one that I got was a brushed appearance. So yeah, that's perfect. And this is about 1/8 inch thick. But again, like I mentioned, that's probably going to be too shiny and new looking, so I probably want to do a little bit of weathering and just kind of grunge it up a little bit. There's just a list of the materials if you're curious. I just got these from Home Depot, just ordered it off their website. I've taken the 3D models that I've created and I've generated some drawings using them. That way I've got a visual representation of what it's supposed to look like, and I've got all the dimensions that I need. I've put them here in dual dimensions just in case you want them in either inches or millimeters. The main dimension that's shown first is in millimeters. The dimension in brackets is obviously in inches because it says it right there. These are the first two big pieces that I'm going to be cutting out of the aluminum composite sheet. And then I've got another drawing sheet showing the pieces that I'm going to cut out of the white acrylic, plus a sheet showing the pieces that I'm going to cut out of the clear acrylic. What you see here for these two pieces is slightly different than what I had shown in the 3D model earlier, because I had actually gone down into my shop and started laying out and marking where to cut for the first piece, and it just seemed really narrow, like across this direction here. This piece just seemed really narrow, and so I came back to the 3D model and played with it a little bit, made it wider, and just to see what that would look like. And I also pushed the lightsabers out a little bit because before the blades were basically right in front of those two diamonds. And I figured since I am going to make this a little bit wider, I can go ahead and push those sabers out so they're not covering the symbol at all, at least from, looking front on. And I like this better, and it feels, that width just feels better when I mark it out. So I'm going to go with that. Okay, I've finished cutting on the pieces of the aluminum composite sheet, and I think they turned out looking really good. Yeah, I like the result. One interesting thing I noticed while I was doing this is that I thought that there would be the brushed aluminum surface on both sides, but there isn't. I had thought that there was a protective sheet on the front. I thought there was also a protective sheet on the back, and that there underneath that protective film would be another brushed aluminum surface, but it isn't. It is aluminum on the back, but it's not the brushed finish. This is actually paint, and didn't have a protective film over it. So as you can see, it's kind of scuffed up and marred, which is fine for my purposes. I don't need the back at all, but that is something you want to keep in mind if you want to use this stuff for a project. That if you're ordering a surface finish, you're likely only going to get that on the front. So you can kind of see if I hold that up, there's kind of some spots where the paint chipped. Yeah, that turned out pretty good. I've got another mid-process design change for the fulcrum symbol in the middle that I'm going to be cutting out of the white acrylic sheet. I had designed these pieces that just covered in, behind this cutout in the aluminum composite and this cutout here. This would be a lot of marking out and precise cutting, and I realized I really didn't need to do all that extra work. Like, for one, these edges here are not going to be seen. They're going to be behind the aluminum composite. So I wouldn't have to do a precise cut on those. I could just do a rough cut. That would save me some time. And the same with these as well. But then I realized, what if I just combine all of this into one piece? So that the two of them into one piece. I'd still have to have separate pieces on each side because there is a gap all the way down the middle of the design, right? This here, there's a gap there. So I still need one piece for the left and one piece for the right. But if I combined those all into one sheet of plastic, just put one big sheet behind there, then I think that's going to end up looking exactly the same from the front. And it's just going to result in a lot less work for me. And so that's what I've done. I've modeled up that piece there, as you can see. from the front. It looks exactly the same as before, but now we've got just enough of the white plastic to go behind the visible cuts. It is wasted material, but honestly, I value my time more than I value these little bits of material I'd be able to save from doing it the hard way. So I made that design change and ended up with this. Okay, I'm back up from the shop. I've done the cutting on the white acrylic sheet. You saw that I had made those drawings from the 3D models, but of course my printer decided at that very moment to refuse to print anymore because I was out of cyan ink, so I couldn't obviously print any more black and white drawings. So anyways, so I had to transfer the drawing by hand to some graph paper so that I could know what I was building. But I've got the acrylic pieces here. They've still got the backing paper on them. I haven't taken that off yet. And they've also got some masking tape that I used to hold the two pieces together. Let's take this masking tape off and take the backing paper off so we can see what we've got. Now, both of these materials, the aluminum composite sheet and this clear, well, not clear, the white, opaque white acrylic, both were really easy to cut and to work with. With the white acrylic, sometimes when you're cutting with a jigsaw, the side that the blade goes into is going to be a nice sharp edge, but the opposite side where the blade comes out, sometimes you'll get the material will kind of flake and chip off because the saw teeth are pushing material out, and if there's nothing to support it, it might just chip and break away. But with this white acrylic sheet, I didn't have any issues with that at all. Both edges were just nice and crisp. So with the aluminum composite, again, the edge that the saw was going into was nice and clean, and the edge that was coming out the back, I was a little concerned that it might, because again, where the teeth is kind of pushing that material away, I was concerned it might actually delaminate the back aluminum sheet off of the plastic substrate. But that didn't happen anywhere that I saw. It just tended to leave a little bit of a sharp burr along the back. Other than that, though, it actually turned out really well. And I just went over on both sides with the file and just cleaned off each edge just so I don't have any sharp edges. Cut myself while I'm working. All right, let's get the rest of this tape off. All right, let's pull the protective film off. Yeah, that looks good. Nice and clean. No scuffs or scratches, no blobs of adhesive. Looks great. So something like that. Didn't line it up perfectly, but just kind of show and tell for now. Yeah, that looks good. I like that. Very cool. I'm glad I went with this approach to make this out of one piece instead of two separate pieces. That would have been so much more work, not only in the cutting, but even in the assembly. Got my two plates assembled and weathered. As you can see, I've just did some dry brushing around the edges. They're pretty big, so they're a little tricky to get in shot here, but this is good enough for now. Just wanted to give you a quick update. Obviously we'll do some better shots of the whole thing once I'm a little further along, but I did want to show that I got those basically done. All I have left to do here is put some holes in for mounting the sabers, and then something on the back to mount the two plates to the wall. I was able to get these cut. Once I had all the pieces cut out, then it was time to glue. And I was using this cement for acrylics. This is how it works essentially. Saber goes up through the middle and then it twists 90 degrees and then slides through here and then it rests on like that. And so you can see the little black ring around the top of the saber is wider than the cutout in the acrylic, and so it rests on that ring. That's the idea. The only thing that I didn't like about this is that it is kind of it doesn't really hold the saber in this direction. It can slide out, and then once if it slides back far enough, it could fall out. So I had to think of a way to keep the saber in place. And so what I came up with is on here I just added I had some scraps of that acrylic, so I just added some little tabs onto there towards the back. So the idea is that, again, you just put it up through, turn it at 90 degrees. If I lift it high enough, it'll go over those tabs, and then when I drop it in, it slides in behind those tabs, and then if it wanted to slide backwards, it's just going to run into that tab. Anyway, so that I think is going to work just fine. And I wasn't sure how sturdy this acrylic glue is going to be, but it dries really hard. It's like rock solid. And so far, I don't have any concerns about the strength now. It was just when I was first putting it on, I was like, oh, I don't know. Just with the, face to face like that, how good could it really be? How strong could it really be? So I'd never really used this stuff before, so I got a couple pieces of scrap and just glued them together along that edge and left it for a day. The stuff is you basically you hold pressure on it for a couple minutes until it sets, and then you can unclamp it, let it go, and then just let it fully cure for 24 hours. And so I left this for a day, and now I can crank on that so hard and it doesn't even budge. I don't know what even it would take to. So yeah, I'm cranking on that pretty good, and it is not budging. I didn't even hear any cracks or anything. So that is rock solid stuff. I think it's done. As you can see, I've got the acrylic brackets mounted on, as well as a bracket for mounting this to the wall. I've just done a cleat style mount here where I've cut this board at an angle, and then there's a corresponding board on the wall that latches onto. And it works pretty well, as you'll see in a second here. But got that on both of them, and it seems to hold the weight just fine. So here's the wall where I'm going to be installing the display, and it's really kind of the perfect place for it because it's just a narrow section of wall between a doorway and the outside wall of the house, and where this display is tall but narrow, seems to be a good place for it. And we've already got a bit of a Star Wars theme going on here with my wife's Forces of Destiny dolls there and her Ahsoka doll. So here are the corresponding cleats that I've attached to the wall already. You can see they're ready to just hook on. So let me grab the two pieces and bring them in. So it really rests on there nicely. Gives it a little bit of space away from the wall, which is exactly what I wanted. So there it is. I think it looks really cool on the wall. Let's get the sabers on there. So the sabers install pretty easily. Just go up through the bracket, give them a 90-degree twist, and then slide them out over these little stoppers that I put in. Then the blade, you can install it with the blade, but it's a bit of a trickier proposition because I didn't really think about that when I was designing this. It's really easy to install the hilt in without the blade, but with the blade, it's you gotta thread the blade up through the middle. So it's doable, but it's tricky. So as you can see, the weight of the saber way out here on this bracket does tend to put a torque on the plate and pull it away from the wall, especially noticeable at the top. I have been able to get it to just kind of stay on its own for a few days, but right now it's not wanting to do that. So I think what I'll have to do is just add a shim in between those mating surfaces to hopefully kind of kick that back towards the wall so that it's flat against the wall. So there it is with the blades installed. And it is kicking out away from the wall up towards the top a little bit. You can kind of see that from the side. It's not too bad really, but it's enough that I notice it, so I'll try and shim it a little bit. So here's how it looks with the blades activated. I don't know if you can hear that sound, but the sabers do make a sound when you activate the blades, and while they're lit up, they make kind of a lightsaber sound. And so that's not really suitable for just keeping these lit for display purposes. I might be able to hack the sabers so that they don't do that. Not sure my wife would want me to do that though, so for now we'll just turn them on every now and then just to ooh and ah, and then we can just keep them turned off for display purposes most of the time. And I'm really glad that I decided to use that brushed aluminum finish for these, because the way it reflects the light from the sabers is really cool. I really like that. You might be able to notice, it's not as noticeable on camera as it is on person, but one of the sabers is a little bit more of a warm white color, and the other is a cool white. Not really sure why that is. I don't remember if they've always been like that, or if maybe I just need fresher batteries or something. Not sure. But even without the sabers lit, Ahsoka's blades are white, and so these happen to be white when they're turned off, so that's perfect. So even without them lit, it still looks great with the blades on for display. That's it for this build. There's the fulcrum lightsaber display for my wife's Ahsoka Tano lightsabers. It's been a fun project. I'm really pleased with the outcome. Thanks for coming along. We'll see you next time.